Hello, this is Lisa LeRose here on PRNFM on Connect to Love. I am joined by the most amazing co-host, Michael J. Russ. I want to welcome you, Michael, and I'm super excited for our topic. But first, I'd like to say welcome to this amazing year, 2023.
Yeah.
Lots of amazing, incredible things yet to unfold.
So many. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I am so blessed to be here with you in this space, in this platform. It's always something I look forward to. You're amazing.
Likewise.
And it is 2023.
The divinity, it is, and so many interesting things. So every year I like to read a book by Antoine Saint-Exupéry called The Little Prince, and I read it in French or I read it in English, but every year I cry because it touches my heart. It is just such a sweet, tender book. And one of the quotes from there is, "It's only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." And I truly believe that. I think that the heart in each one of us really does help us see. When we tune into the energy of our heart, I think that it's a space where there can be no judgment, there's no right, wrong, good, bad, whatever it is. Whatever is true for us, you can find within that heart. I think that the people in our lives, you see a mother embrace her child. There's that, she pulls the baby close to her heart. There's a deep, very precious connection that's formed from the time when we were infants. And I think that our heart, even though a heart can be broken and is vulnerable, I think that it allows us to experience and to connect with others on such an amazing level. And I really, when we speak about having an open heart, that is another thing that really, I think, can make a difference. I just posted, I don't know if you had an opportunity to see it, Michael, but a video of a gentleman who made half of a heart with his fingers. And as people were walking by, he opened it out and invited them to come in and to connect. And I just thought,
I saw that. That's beautiful.
How brilliant. How brilliant.
Standing on the sidewalk.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the power of the heart, right?
Yes, absolutely. It was a brilliant
And although
concept.
there were people, and although there were people that were resistant, even though he held it there, it was an open heart. It was his way of extending that opportunity to connect with him. And even though people were quickly gone, they all left with a smile. Some of them shook their heads like, "Oh, really?" But to me, it was a significant choice that they made at that moment in time to actually connect with somebody's heart. And that's what I find so beautiful about it. I think the wisdom of the heart. We talk about all of these things and really tapping into the heart. And so I thought that what a way to start the new year, but to speak about it and how powerful we are. You know, I think it's one of our superpowers, that when we can touch into that heart center, everything is possible. So
when I took when I took a cruise in December, I made it a point to I set an intention to connect with people on a heart level as I during the time on the cruise, and it's amazing how many people. It didn't matter whether I was going to spend time with them, we were having lunch together or dinner or whatever. It was just I wanted to make sure that I smiled and I had this connection with them that was big and purposeful, and it was highly successful. I should say to the point where the the officer in charge of the human resources noticed it at the end of the cruise night before the last night. He said, "Hey, I've been watching you. You're pretty amazing." I said, "What?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "I've been watching the way you connect with people. It's really, really amazing." And I said, "Thank you." I said, "I appreciate it." And it's something that being in the sales profession for 45 years. I have found that in all honesty, your heart connection is, you want to make a heart-to-heart connection with people. Whether or not they end up buying your product or not, the whole idea is to make a heart-to-heart connection with them. And that's I do it via my presence, via my smile, my attitude about what I'm doing. And it's something that I cherish and that I've come to really, really focus on with a lot of deep intention before I connect with people. I think about how I can make an impact and how quickly I can get them to smile. That's really the magic in life, I think, is the smile. Smile is infectious. And you'd be amazed at how many people are not, they don't smile. They're just serious about life, or they've got something else. They're somewhere else, but they're not present. And the one thing about a smile is it is something, in my view, that you do when you are present.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I've touched their heart when they smile, when they giggle or laugh about something. And I want to get to that point as quickly as possible. Bring them into the present, suck them into the present moment of a heart-to-heart connection. And I make it a point to do that. And I encourage our listeners to do the same. We get too caught up in our own lives, too caught up in our outer world to really recognize that everyone needs and deserves a heart-to-heart connection. Mm-hmm. And whether it's your own family, whether it's your friends, with perfect strangers, that video that you sent was probably one of the most unique videos that I've seen, period, in my life, where someone is instead of doing a selfie, they're doing this video where they have half the heart shape with their hand. Brilliant idea, by the way. And mm-hmm. He or she's on a sidewalk, because I didn't see who it was, on the sidewalk, then doing half a heart. And it's something that's come to be the symbol made with your hands and your fingers of a heart has become a universal symbol. You don't have to speak someone's language in order to understand that symbol, and it's really unique. I mean, every culture understands what that symbol is, and it's fascinating. And he just did half, and you're right. Some people did it willingly. Others did it, we're a little suspect, because that's the way, people have learned to be, by engaging in their outer world without any kind of, with lots of filters, so to speak. And I thought it was beautiful, and I appreciate you sharing it.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I see the heart really as our gift. It is our gift. It's our connection. There's so much that we've spoken about before about the HeartMath Institute. And
yes, we have.
And one of the things that I've learned through the science from the HeartMath Institute is that the heart is actually formed and starts beating before the brain is even formed. And recently, one of the things that I also learned about through them, and it was sort of interesting because it was only in 1991 that this was discovered. And, of course, it was discovered by a scientist. His last name was Amor, which means love.
Amor.
Which I just,
great.
I thought was so fascinating. But what he found was there's actually 40,000 specialized cells within the heart. And that they are these sensory neurites, and they're actually very much like a brain. And so the HeartMath started speaking about the little brain in the heart. And for those of our listeners that want to delve more into the science aspects of it, I would encourage them to please go to heartmath.org, I think is what it is, all one word. But what they found was that these cells learn completely independently of the brain. They feel, they think, which I thought was so incredible. And the fact that it was that they had their own intelligence just was amazing to me. And so then as the science started to evolve, they started to say that you have these neurons that are in the heart, these sensory neurites, and that they reach out. And if they show on HeartMath these videos of them reaching out with these branches, and all they want to do is connect. Isn't that amazing? They want to connect.
Yes.
The science and how we, and it took from 1991 for this scientist to discover this. But I found that was so interesting. And then as they were studying, they actually found that they also have the ability to remember things. So when they say, like, the heart does not forget, and really I think when you have an emotion or somebody touches your heart, and it's such a beautiful feeling, and your heart swells, beyond measure, you never forget that. And then here you say, well, I don't need science for it. My heart tells me what's true. But here it is. It's in the hardcore science. And I just thought that was so amazing. And well, the other thing that they said was that when you are in a space where you're feeling, and they said basically to get yourself into that space, they found like 4 keys, and it was just the 4 keys, and you and I have talked about them so many times: appreciation, gratitude, care, and compassion. And that when the heart was feeling those emotions, it couldn't feel anger or frustration or irritation or disappointment or any of those other feelings. It's like it completely cuts them off. And
say those again for our audience so they can get that. Run those 4 by them again.
Basically, what they said was it's an appreciation for everything and anything, gratitude for anything and everything, care, and compassion. And it just, those are the feelings that create that state. And what's interesting, you and I, and when we had Frankie Love on, we were talking about frequencies and vibration. And one of the frequencies that they've measured from this electrical magnetic force that's emitted from this heart is 0.1 hertz, which is really a very, very minute threshold of, we can't even hear it, but it's a signal that the whales emit. And that when this signal, this 0.1 hertz, it's actually created by those appreciation, gratitude, care, and compassion. And so if you want to be able to elevate yourself, elevate your emotions, take yourself away from a challenging situation, you think about something that you're grateful for or appreciative of, or somebody that you care about. Simple, right? Beautiful.
I do that when, by the way, that's my number one suggestion to people who are experiencing loss of someone or something, is because gratitude is a wonderful element of alchemy that can transmute just about everything. And when they're experiencing loss in the throes of it, I say to them that, when you get to the point where you can be grateful for having had them in your life, for having experienced the connection with them, then you'll smile instead of cry. That's what you'll do. And it's from sadness to gratitude. You've got to get there. And the gratitude is the way that you do it. And if that doesn't work, if there's something else preventing you from getting in there, you can employ forgiveness along with that. You can forgive yourself if there's some sort of something that you did or were part of that in some way drove you apart from each other, and you wished you had the opportunity to reconnect, but you maybe didn't. Forgiveness is a tool that you need to use, and gratitude in conjunction with gratitude for the time you actually did have a connection with them, a deeper connection. Beautiful.
100%. Michael, I'd love if you would share a little bit with the audience about exactly how you open your heart. As you said, you were on that ship, and when you dropped into that space and opened your heart, what does that look like? So for our audience members who don't get to interact with you in person at the moment.
Thank you. It looks number one, it starts with you, and you have to feel good about yourself, good about life. You have to get on par with those feelings. And what you're really doing when you're resonating those frequencies of love and compassion and empathy, caring, gratitude, forgiveness, when you're in the higher realms of frequencies, it is obviously much easier to convey those because you're already resonating them. And that's really what I do. I focused when I was on the ship. I focused on how grateful I was. We're coming towards the end of the year, so I was already starting to think about the things I was grateful for this year. I literally, if there was anything that I somehow did this year, I forgave myself for it, let it go. I put myself in a state of meditation a couple of times where I was just listening to the water, the ship going through the water. I was on a place where I could hear that, where the ship was moving through the water, and I could hear the rustle of the waves as it moved forward. And then the connection is simple. You look people in the eye because you have to look them in the eye. You look them in the eye, look deep into their eyes, and say hello. And who are you? Where are you from? What are you doing here? Because we all have a common purpose for being on the ship is to get away from whatever it is that we're doing. So the questions I asked most often were, the first thing I said was, hello, I'm Michael, and who are you? And they would tell me their name, and I'd say, well, what brings you here? What made you take this trip? And then eventually I'd say, where are you from? And they would tell me. And invariably, I would develop a connection, a deep connection, by their answers to those questions. One of those questions immediately, boom, boom, it would come up. And a lot of the people on the cruise, this is very interesting, a lot of people on the cruise were in their 70s and 80s. It was interesting because, because it left out of Miami, there were a lot of retired people, a lot of older people in their 70s and 80s who wouldn't have gotten on a plane to travel 9 hours to go to the Aegean Sea or some other part of the world. They did drive to Miami and got on the ship. And so it was a completely different mix of people. So I had a lot of wisdom to absorb from people. And I met people who had their own businesses and were CEOs. I met a professor from Florida State University. I met somebody who retired who had a business, pest control business. And we have a standing invitation to go to some very small town up in Tennessee to hang out with them in the next couple of months. It's interesting what you can learn from people, and I think that is really what people understood. I wasn't just there to pay them lip service. I really wanted to know about them. It's sincerity, number one. Anytime you're dealing with people developing a heart connection, you must be sincere and honest. Stand and listen. There was a woman who was with her mother, and her mother was in her 90s, and she was in a wheelchair. And I think she was experiencing some memory issues, some cognitive issues, I should say. And she was on the cruise with her mother, and her mother was in a wheelchair. Every time we saw her, she never walked. She was always in a wheelchair. And this woman said, I encountered her because we were sitting next to her, separate table, but sitting right next to her eating. And she'd asked the question about something, and we connected just slightly. And I could tell that she was connected for a moment, and then she wasn't. And it was an interesting thing, the dichotomy there. All of a sudden, she was there, and she was with you for a moment, and then she was away from you and totally somewhere else, either dealing with her mother, concerned or worried about her mother, making sure that things went right, smoothly. I mean, I've been in a situation where with my mother when we go out, and I'm very attentive. You want to make sure that things happen the way they should, and that they're taken care of. And her mother had deeper cognitive issues than my dad had initially. Now, my mother doesn't have any, so I noticed that. I took note, and I told my girlfriend later. I said, I got this sense she connected, we connected, and then all of a sudden the connection was severed when her mind went back to her mother and she was worried about something. She was like in a state of relaxation one moment and then stress the next. Relaxation.
So she left her heart and went into her brain.
Yeah, she went into her brain. Very well put. Very well put. That's exactly it. And that is kind of what you do when you're a caregiver. And she was a caregiver for her mother. She moved from the Northeast, moved to Atlanta to live with her mother and to take care of her mother. So she totally gave up what she was doing. She wasn't married, and she was on the cruise with her mom, perhaps for the last time. I'm not quite certain, but and could never tell that. But it was interesting because we'd had a couple of these encounters, and on the last day we were about to leave the ship, and I was thinking, that's the one person I didn't really make a connection with, and I wish I could have sat down with her and kind of maybe gave her a hug and said, which is what I would have done, is sat down with them and said, "Can I give you a hug?" And sometimes they just, they're taken aback, and other times they just, they think about it for a moment because people don't ask that question. Right? Nobody asks, "Can I give you a hug?" But I kind of sensed, and I told my girlfriend, I kind of sensed that she didn't have the opportunity on that cruise to kind of connect with people because she was in a caregiving mode in her brain, caregiving for her mother. But we were leaving. We were getting ready to make a left and go to the elevators from the salon and get off the ship the last day. And here she comes. She had left her mother and come over. I think she must have walked at least 30 feet, walked over to us and met us as we were walking out. And she said, "Thank you for having kind of dinner with us and everything." She was very cordial, smiled, and really appreciative that we had connected with her, because I don't think a lot of people on that ship had connected with her. They had seen what she was doing, and sometimes people just don't recognize that everybody needs connection. And people who are caregivers, bless their hearts, they need connection as well. They have a life. They're individuals, and got to get out of your head at least a little bit. But I was blown away. I was literally walking out the door going, we did make a connection with her. It just wasn't a connection. It didn't have the depth that it had, that we had with other people who we'd eaten with and sat down with and broken bread with, just out of because you on a ship you can choose in the dining room to eat by yourself, or you can share a table with who knows who. You don't know who you're going to eat with. But so we said, I would. Sometimes it was by ourselves, and other times we'd say, we want to share a table with somebody, and we sat down, and then another couple comes and sits with you, and you talk and you meet each other. And the time it happened with the university professor and his wife, who was a psychologist, we closed the dining room. We were talking to each other. And we left there and we went up to the observation bar. We talked till midnight. And again, another open invitation to come down to Tampa or to do whatever, meet with them and hang out. And it gives you an appreciation that for being able to connect. To me, it's like I practice the intention I set the intention to practice connecting with people. I want to make sure that I'm developing these heart connections. It's not about becoming lifelong friends or, hey, let's go to dinner, or that's not really what it's about. The briefest of connections can have sometimes the biggest impact.
Absolutely.
The briefest of connections. And it's somebody who's serving you. We often forget when we're in a customer service environment, when we're the customer and there's something going wrong. We often forget that the person sitting in front of you is simply delivering a message. They didn't cause the problem that you're looking to deal with. And so their job is not to absorb your negativity, which unfortunately they have to do. Their job is to assist you with moving forward. And when you are kind to them, when you care about them and show a sense of develop a sense of connection with them, you make that attempt to make a heart-to-heart connection with them, you feel better and you leave them feeling better. You leave them feeling so good and so appreciative that they're doing what they're doing. Everybody has to have the opportunity to feel that what they're doing is important, regardless of what it is. And and we forget about it. That's just what we do. I see it all the time.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter where you are. I think that when you are in a state of dropping into your heart, it gives you an extra sense of intuition, and it almost, I think, broadens your scope of seeing the dynamics of everything that's going on around you. What's interesting about, and this is what I found so fascinating, was we talked in the past about the states of the brain and, alpha, beta, theta, delta when you sleep. But when the brain, when you are actually in a heart-centered space, the brain goes into what they call gamma. And if you look at it, it's a very fast up and down wave. And in my opinion, it's almost like it doesn't allow the brain to think. It doesn't allow it to go into the analytics of why, whatever. It's just, okay, the heart is taking over. And that's when the magic happens. And I so many times we and you are the same way. You go to a lot of these restaurants and they know you, and even though they're not part of your family, you get to know them on a personal level. And so when you see, like we went out on Christmas Eve for dinner, and they were short-staffed, and you knew they were short-staffed when the head chef was bussing the tables. And our table, even though we had a reservation, our table was not ready when we got there. And my partner was a little irritated. I said, "Let's take a minute, look around. Look at the head chef is bussing the tables. They are doing the best they can. It's time for a little bit of care and compassion. These people wait on us all year round. This is not an easy evening for them." And then he's like, "Oh, you're right." And it took him one, minute, and he's like, "Wow, I can see how hard they're working, and they're really trying to do their best for everybody to make it a nice experience."
Yeah, I agree with you.
And I do. I think that there's a certain intuition. You sort of feel, when you're in that space of the heart, you feel what's going on. As an empath, you have that space, and and I
you're inviting empathy and compassion.
Yes.
You're inviting that into purposely. You're slipping into that space. Empathy, compassion come forward, and you feel the love for them, the love for that they have for what they're doing and the place, and even the chef. It's kind of challenging to explain, and I know you're doing your best you can. However, it is a feeling. It is a space that you slip into that supersedes everything. You go out of your head. All of a sudden, you're in your heart. You're caring. You're empathetic, to the point of almost, hey, I'll bust that table for you. It's like,
yeah, I know exactly. That's what I felt like.
Right. Let me help you. Let me help you do this. What can I help you do? Even though you're there as the customer, because you have taken the time to make that connection with them earlier in the year or in years over the years, it is you have a sense of I don't worry about me. I can take care of myself. I'll do this. And you make sure that some other people who may not be as forgiving and as compassionate as we are, make sure that they get your best. We know what your best is, it looks like. And it was interesting because I was somewhere recently where, where was it? Oh, it was on the ship several times. These guys were running around trying to make sure that everybody was taken care of. And I'm just the kind of guy, when I ate, or if we sat at the bar and we had a glass of champagne and we ate lunch, after the lunch, I'd see that I was about 10 feet away from where the people would bus. If I was done, I just literally took my plate over and just sat it over there for them. It's no big deal. I'm sure their officers, their bosses might not like that somebody who paid a lot of money for a cruise is doing the work of somebody else. However, I can see how hard they're working. And I don't have a problem if I'm just, 10 feet away, that I can go do that. It's kind of like when you're in a place where you're in a restaurant where, it may be a deli or somewhere else, and you're seeing that things are busy. They may be understaffed. And nowadays, a lot of restaurants are understaffed. A lot of our restaurants we go to that previously have had plenty of staff are short. It's happening all across the country and all around the world. And what makes it interesting is that we know the people. We know the managers. We know the chefs. We know the people who are doing their utmost to take care of you. And I don't have a problem if it's in a situation where I can't do it, making sure that I help out a little bit. Just take a little bit of the ease off. And I tell people, don't worry. We're patient. Go help those people. Make sure that they're taken care of. We know we've got all the time in the world. We're not going anywhere. We're not holding you to a specific standard, which is what a lot of people do when they go in a restaurant. That's why everybody's a critic. And we don't need to be critics. I have to tell you this cool story, though. Because I've been dying to tell you this one. It fits right in with what we're talking about today. We were in Puerto Rico, the first stop on the cruise, and Sandy and I had booked a lunch in a restaurant called Cava in Fairmont Old San Juan. In the Fairmont Old San Juan, it was a hotel that was built in 1958, the year I was born. It opened. And this place was fabulous. I mean, woodwork, hand-carved woodwork panels in the ceilings and the walls and the columns. And we'd had this beautiful lunch together, she and I. And we were on our way out. And she says, well, let's stop at the bar and have a glass of wine. And I said, that's kind of cool. We don't have anywhere to go, anywhere to be. Let's just do this. We got a couple hours to kill. So we sat down at the bar, and the gentleman who helped us was from Puerto Rico. He was born and raised there. Spoke very good English, because you'd be amazed at the number of people in Puerto Rico that don't speak English. I find that interesting. However, very unique. It's so true. No habla inglés. And I'm like, what? It's a commonwealth, and I'm going, okay, fine. That's cool. I can understand it. I don't fight it. However, this gentleman who was behind the bar was about 32 years of age. No, I'm sorry. That was somebody else. He was 28. He was 28 years of age. And his name was Yusao. Yusao. That was his name. And I said, what a unique name. And he says, yeah. He told me what it means at the time, and I unfortunately at this point have forgotten. I'm pretty sure I wrote it down somewhere else. But we got to talking and about life and about, because we were the only ones at the bar. So we'd had, a glass of wine, and he stopped to talk with us and stuff like that. And long story short, he said something that nobody had ever said to me before, because I was giving him some encouragement. He was talking about some things, and we were talking about people and relationship. And he says, I noticed something about you. And I said, what's that? And he said, at the end of whatever you say, you always smile.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
Sandy, my girlfriend, looked at me. She saw me speechless for like the first time in a long time. And I'm like, oh my gosh. I said, what? I had to have him say it again, because I was like, what did you just say? My mind was desperately trying to process what he just said. And he said, no. He says, it's really interesting. You when you say something to me, you smile when you get at the end of what you say. And I'm like, I never even noticed that before. It's well, obviously I don't see myself, but nobody else has noticed it. And he said, yeah, you absolutely do. I said, I don't know how you do that, but I'd like to do that. And I said, well, you're halfway there already, my friend.
Wow.
And it was an amazing compliment, something that in my 64 years no one had ever said to me before. And I thought that I'd heard everything, every kind of wonderful comment or this and that, but the fact that he was so connected, we were so connected that he would say that, and we were talking about deep subjects that we talk about, like on this radio show, and it just blew me away. That was like the highlight of, if you could believe it, at the beginning of the cruise, the highlight of the cruise. It was just something that I had learned about myself that I did not know. Now I'm paying attention to people. I'm paying attention to people that I talk to, and I'm seeing how people. Oh my gosh, what do people do when they finish a sentence? Do they smile, or do they? How do they look? It's like, so you can see where now it's opened up this whole new world of, and I do it naturally without even knowing that I'm doing it. So I wouldn't want somebody to go to just break into a fake smile every time they finish the sentence of some kind. However, it is rather unique. And I don't watch a lot of my own videos, but I if I had, it would probably reveal that I actually do that. And I don't know how I would feel about it, but I wouldn't want to be conscious about it. It's just something that I would love to do. So
right.
The heart-to-heart connection is big.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it comes to you organically, Michael, because you do come from a space of the heart. And we talked about those mirror neurons that before on a show that when you are with somebody, what you're doing is being mirrored within their brain. So when you're smiling, whether it be from your heart or and you end something with a smile, it's elevating your emotion, it's elevating who you are, and really you are truly the definition of living in the heart, living from the heart. I mean, it's basically who you are. That is what you live your life with bliss, courage, compassion for people. You have joy in your life. And it's not as though you don't have challenges. None of us have a life where everything is perfect, but it's how you react to it, how long you hold that emotion. So if you had something that was the opposite of positive unfold for you, it's not something that's going to affect you for weeks, months, years from now. You let it go. You let it go.
Yeah. Because the best thing anybody can ever do, that was the most sound advice I was given by somebody who was much, much wiser than me, who said, if you could just forget about what happened yesterday, you'd live the most amazing life, because you'd be in the moment experiencing the now. If you just forget about what happened yesterday. And I can tell you that over the last 3 decades, I have pretty much trained myself to forget about what happened yesterday. If you ask me what happened the second day of the cruise, couldn't tell you. If you ask me what happened last Sunday, couldn't tell you. I don't know what happened. It's gone already. I was there. I experienced it. I was in the moment. Now it's a different moment. And that is the way I love to live. It doesn't matter. I don't need to regurgitate what I did, from the moment I woke up to the time I went to bed. I live with the intention of being here now on this radio show with you, having this conversation, focused. I'm not looking around and doing a bunch of other things. And it's the beauty of the show that I love doing with you is that it is unscripted, and it's right here in the now moment. So what people are hearing from us is what is coming to us based on this conversation we've decided to have in this particular case about the wisdom of the heart. And it's a beautiful thing. And what I could encourage our listeners to do in order to move into this space is to be cognizant of the fact that you can be receptive to moving into this space, to being present. I think it's just as important, being present with who you're with at the time. If you're not with anyone, be present with yourself. Sense your breathing. Sense your focus. Sense how you feel in that moment. And ask yourself, where is my focus? Am I thinking about something that's already gone that I can't do anything about? Or am I focused on the future? And are my feelings positive? Are they higher frequencies, or am I in the lower frequency realm? Fear, anxiety, what am I worried about something? Am I frustrated? And we have to know where we are and to recognize when we are in our heart space. It's something that we develop a knack for organically. We have to train ourselves to be present. And nowadays, there's so much distraction that it is even more challenging than when you and I were growing up.
Absolutely.
It's a lot more challenging now to be in a place for 2 weeks on the ship, I didn't really deal. I had internet. I might have texted a couple of people, like my sister, or sent some photos off here and there. However, I didn't have to worry about email. I didn't check email. I didn't concern myself with any social media. I kind of just separated myself from all of that, and that's how I was able to be more present. Because interestingly enough, if you're into the digital world on a daily basis all day, detoxifying yourself from it can be very, number one, revealing. It can also be a freeing experience. Experience where you're able to reconnect with who you are and your own intentions. You're not reading about somebody else's misfortune, challenges. You are, and you're not looking outside of yourself for inspiration, which in my view, is one of the most important things that we need to get back to. We need to go inside for inspiration, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. Go inside for inspiration instead of looking to others, looking for something outside of us for inspiration. We are our own Energizer bunny inside. We are our own. We have the ability to connect with our heart in ways that we maybe previously have never taken the time to do.
Right.
But it's there, and I find that people ask me, why are you so happy? Because the alternative doesn't feel good.
Right.
The alternative. Why should I allow something outside of me to make me feel not good about myself and my life? Yet that is exactly what happens. We go further and further away from the heart. The more outside of ourselves we go, the farther we go from our connection with our heart. Right. That's just my view. And we have to bring it back home. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The farther we go.
Yeah. And that's exactly what the HeartMath has said, that when the brain is in a gamma state, it's actually a natural antidepressant. That's when you're happy. And right. They said that you can shift that so quickly, that signal. As soon as you go into the heart, it literally can shift the brain that quickly, as long as it's a coherent, and it's a nice, easygoing sine wave. Now they have years ago I went to see Greg Braden speak, and Roland McCready from the HeartMath was there, and they had these units that were called M waves. And you just hook it up to your finger, and as you breathe and you practice going into that heart coherence state, you kind of drop into the field of the heart, and you breathe into it. And you're getting the feedback from the computer, and they have all sorts of little games that you can play, and you can tell, as you practice it, you find that you can get into it, quicker and quicker, and that when you do, things just shift. And, there's a technique that they taught us that's sort of like the doorway to the heart-brain connection. And I'll go over those steps if you're interested in maybe our audience. But basically, to shift your awareness away from the mind and the brain and to go into the heart, basically you just take your fingers, or if you want to do a prayer position, or just gently touch the heart in a way that feels comfortable and good to you. And you see this in cultures all over the world. People put their hands on their heart, they do a prayer mudra. There's just that interesting calming sensation when we actually touch our heart. And then all you do is breathe in slowly for 5 seconds. You inhale, and then you take the time to exhale for 5 seconds. And when you do that, it creates that harmony. And then you think about something, as we talked about, that you're appreciative of or grateful for, or that you care about, or that you have compassion for. And you cannot be in that brain state of analytics when you're in the field of the heart. The two just can't coexist. And so a lot of times if I'm having a challenge, and that's exactly where I go, I just change the channel. And I was mentioning to you before the show, Michael, that I went to an event on the 1st of the year, and it was a meditation. The woman had a slide, and she said how easy it is to change the channel. I thought it was a really great analogy. So you can be on CNN, where there's politics and news and negativity and strife, or you can change the channel to the Discovery Channel, and you'll learn about animals and the planet and all sorts of things that make you smile. That's so great. I love the word discovery. I'm like, okay, it's that quick. Change the channel.
Mm-hmm.
Change the channel.
Yeah. That's exactly right. That's a beautiful process of alchemy right there. That's a beautiful path of alchemy. I love it. And it is it's something that I wrote it down, by the way, because I like to harbor these techniques, try them myself, see how it works out. For me, I saw the M-Wave demonstration in their TED Talk. They used it on stage, where they brought somebody up that was anxious about something, and they were able to take them in a few moments. They were able to help them change the channel using this technique, and while hooked up to the M-Wave machine. It was really, really eye-opening. I
just wanted to mention one thing, that if you do it for 3 days, which they found was that if in 72 hours, if you do that, where you feel the feelings of love as you're breathing, or care, or compassion, or gratitude, or appreciation, that in 72 hours you are building new neural networks. You actually are changing your brain. Mm. And I love that. I love that. I mean, how simple. When you're driving, when you're wherever, touch into that field of the heart. So I'd love to hear what you experience when you do that, Michael.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting because I slip in. When I walk, I'm into for the last 5 days. It's not a resolution for me. It's just something that I've wanted to do and take the time to do because I used to do it a couple of years ago before things kind of changed around here with pets and animals and some the passings and other things, the challenges and horse challenges and things. I used to be on a schedule where I would walk like 3 miles every morning, and I've gotten back into that. I'm on my 4th day doing it, where I listen to like Frankie Love or listen to another 432 frequency melody that is pretty awesome that I found, that goes on for about 3.5 hours. The music goes on consistently for about 3.5 hours, all tuned to 432 wavelength frequency, and I breathe. I practice breathing while I'm walking, and I sometimes close my eyes for a few seconds while I'm walking as I'm breathing, and feel myself and feel my body, what it's like to be walking, to be moving, and how I can make my stride smoother. And it's not so much that I'm not really looking around. I'm listening to this, and I'm in this space, and it's almost like 50 minutes of meditation for me. So calming, so relaxing. The frequency of music is setting the stage. I'm listening to myself. I'm getting into a stride, breathing deeply and exhaling deeply. And it's so relaxing that when I get back, I'm not wiped out. I'm just very energized. I'm oxygenated. And believe it or not, as it would happen, if you're spending 50 minutes breathing and calming down and being in a sort of a heart-centered space, things are going to come to you. I will, I could set the intention to kind of ask my angels to communicate with me about the talk I need to give in a month and a half, or something I'd like to do a podcast on, and being in that space, it allows. I open up that frequency so that I can connect with my higher self and my guides and angels to just kind of put things in my head that I need to know or remember. And sometimes to the point where I'll have to pull on my phone out of my pocket and just go to the notepad real quick and notate something that I got, some information that came to me. And it's a great space to be. I'm sure runners experience it. Of course, there's the endorphin high and things of that nature from that people get from running. I can't say that that's necessarily what I'm experiencing. However, I do walk by some places that are very beautiful, and I take the time to experience their beauty while I'm walking, to look at them and go, wow, this is just gorgeous. You see a heron, I might see a deer, I might see a few squirrels, a turtle here and there, crossing the path, and it's life. It is so amazingly relaxing to be able to do that, and I feel great for having done it, because I sit all day, and anybody who sits all day in their office, and there's a lot of people out there in our listenership that happen to work from home now. It's good to do something, and meditation is one thing, walking is another, getting out and getting busy, and developing a routine where you can connect with yourself, connect with your heart in something that is so benign as walking. If I in California, I used to play golf by myself. I used to go out, and I used to just go out as a single. And sometimes I'd play by myself, other times I'd play with other people. But if I went out at the right time of day, I'd play by myself. And it's wonderful to do something that a lot of people don't like to do. It's interesting because this leads me to one other thing. We're talking about the heart and the connection. There's a challenge in this country with many, many, many people. They're alone. They're lonely. And I was listening to this NPR program about loneliness on Sunday. I could only listen to it for a little while because they made it so depressing to listen to. Oh my goodness! I couldn't believe it. I'm like, the music was depressing, and Sandy's sitting next to me going, "We're listening to this," and I'm picking up on this whole tone of how loneliness is a problem. And she looks at me and she goes, "This is incredibly depressing." And I said, "Yes, it is. I have to change the channel." But it made me, I listened to it long enough to understand that in this country and around the world, loneliness is a problem. People feel lonely. And my answer to this particular gentleman is, why do people feel so lonely? And I'm like, I don't know. If you sit down, I'm never lonely. Either I've got a dozen angels hanging around. Yeah. My guide is there, always, Red, my Indian spirit guide's there. I know, hanging around me. It's not that I am lonely. It's even when I was single, I wasn't lonely. I took the time to just enjoy me, enjoy being with me. And meditation is a great way of connecting with something greater than yourself, your higher self, connecting to your gifts and your talents. There are a lot of people out there who pursue their gifts and their talents as a solo mission. It's not that it's so simple that I can say that people who feel a sense of loneliness are perhaps more thinking about that they are disconnected from their outer world and not necessarily taking advantage of that period in their lives to connect with their inner world. I feel my inner world connection really takes up a lot of, I'm not going to say time, I'm just saying that I really cherish that time where I'm by myself.
Right.
It's
I understand.
Yeah, and it's a challenge, I'm sure. I know you have a lot of things that you're involved in, that you're passionate about, and that you're pursuing on a daily basis. And what is your thought about loneliness?
Well, for me, I'm never lonely. I enjoy the quiet in my day and the solitude, and I don't know. I've always been able. I guess it's a gift because I had a loving mother that I'm sure that I felt her heart as she was carrying me. That I don't know. I feel comfortable really wherever I am in the world, even if I'm dining by myself in a restaurant. I'm looking around, I'm observing, I'm feeling what's going on. Like you, Michael, when I take a walk, for me it's about living and learning about the world through my heart, and I experience that. And I guess I'm gregarious enough, even though I was painfully shy. I'm always able. I always seem to find the right person I want to have a conversation with, or just share something with. It just seems to organically unfold. And I think that's really what the power of the heart really is about. It allows us to choose to be in the space of love. I saw a video, and I will post a link to it years ago, and I can't remember his first name. I apologize, but it was Galloway, and it was a song called Choose Love. And I must have watched this video 15, if not 20 times, because they had images where it was something that wasn't maybe as positive, and then something positive. And basically the lyrics of the song were, because I choose love, and that's where I want to be. This is what I want to create. And I want to just mention something, because, and we can get onto this in another conversation, but my mind tends to wander. And so one of the things that I know about the field of the heart, it emanates 9 feet from the physical body. So I thought to myself, well, that's interesting, 9. A 9 is a 369, Nikola Tesla. So I thought, well, if I gather with somebody else and I have 9 feet and they have 9 feet, then we've got 18 feet. So if I took 9 people, then I'm going 81 feet. So we're all emanating from the heart. How many people would it take to reach and really change the frequency and the consciousness of the city if we're all vibrating from the heart? So this is where my mind's going. And then I'm going, well, okay, so then if I did a city, then if I did a state, what would it be like if we did the country? And I don't think, maybe that's a project that you and I want to embark on for 2023. I don't know. It came to me this morning, and I just kept thinking the magic of 3, 6, and 9, and I'm thinking, well, here we got 9 feet around us. How powerful is that? So
it is true.
Anyway.
We can. It falls in line with the theory that our outer world changes when we change ourselves, and when we connect with our heart, and we send these positive energy and waves out. Love, gratitude, compassion, kindness, 9 feet from our body, and other people do it as well. We when we come together, we have, again, it becomes exponential. And yes, you can do it. It's happening. Believe it or not, it's happening right now. I know we're very close to being over here in 2 minutes. I'll simply say, right now in the United States, there's Buffalo, New York. There was a football player who was struck by a heart palpitation that during the football game. And he was from Pittsburgh, a tall black young man, 24 years old. And in essence, the whole country has kind of tapped into his challenge. And the wave we're talking about from the heart is occurring right now all over this country as a result of what happened to this young man. So, yes, it is a living example of what can happen. His charity donations have gone from 2,500 to 6 million in 2 days. In 2 days. And it's people who care. It's touched people in such a profound way. And and so I believe that's a living example of what we would like to create intentionally without having to have someone suffer some physical malady.
Right.
You know? So, listen, I'm based on my clock, we're almost out of time. I'm simply going to tell you this. It is always a joy to talk about anything with you because we're in such the same space. And I invite our listeners to check us out on Connect to Love, the podcast on various podcast networks. This show is turned into a podcast so that you can listen to it again, share it with somebody else. Connect to Love, the number 2, and Love. And it's no coincidence that the show is called Connect to Love, and we're talking about heart-to-heart connection. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, thank you.
I thank you.
Enjoy a beautiful and blessed week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.